everybody. We're Team CSU. My name is Tabitha.
My name is Rovan.
And I'm the number guy.
All right, now we're ready to get started. So, who here likes a great solution? Me. Good for you, good for you. We're going to go ahead and jump straight into the problem. So, Albert Einstein said, if, I had a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and just 5 minutes thinking about the solution. So we are going to jump right into how we see this problem right now. So Capital One in the Decision Lab came together and they did a survey. And they found that 77% of people said that financial stress was their number one source of stress. Now, statistically speaking, we have 5 judges here today. That means that 3 of you are starting to zone out because you're thinking about your bills. Wait. Abir, what is 77% of 5?
3.85.
Oh, no. One of you guys was thinking about canceling your Netflix subscription, too. So it's getting serious. Hopefully one of you guys is thinking about our presentation. But in all seriousness, we really needed to dig into the data because why are people really stressed out, right? Why is everyone so stressed out about their finances? And here's a couple of things that we found. The first group of people, about 32%, said that they're just not making enough money. And that really makes sense when you consider inflation, that it's hitting everybody, it's hitting the businesses. But then you have 26% of people who feel like they just have really poor savings, really inadequate savings, and 24% of people are experiencing and worrying about excessive debt. Now, these seem like 3 separate problems, but what we find is that they all have the same common denominator, which is just debt. Now, brace yourselves for something that you have never heard about before. Student loan debt.
Way.
Right? I mean, it's not like it's been protested or in the news or anything like that. This may be America's #1 best kept secret. Shh. But in all seriousness, student debt has become one of the biggest burdens. Second to mortgages, $1.7 trillion in debt held by 42 million Americans. And what we're hearing is that student debt is one of their biggest concerns. So remember the folks that are worried about excessive debt? Well, PNC's student debt solutions gave us some data to show that 86% of people feel that their student debt is more significant than even their home loans and their auto loans. And the folks that feel like they can't save enough, have inadequate savings, well, in 2019, Fidelity published a study that showed that 84% of the people that had student loan debt said that they just really, it prevented them from being able to save. So what is the point of amazing retirement plan if you can't even put into it? So here's the thing, you guys. I think that people are just tired of more how-to videos and tutorials on how to, invest the money that you can't even afford to save. And here I am. I have like 1 daughter in college. I have a son that I'm still paying childcare for. I really don't need the tips and advice on how to save money when I just don't have it. It's like giving a cookbook to somebody who has an empty refrigerator. It's just not very helpful at all. And in the end, what we find is actually it frustrates people, and it probably creates more aggravation and maybe even a little more employee turnover when you do that. So how do you pay people more without it costing you more? And that is the magic that we are here to explain.
I was drowning in debt up to my ears. Student loans haunting me for years and years. Then my boss said, son, don't you fret. We've got a plan to lift that debt. Loan lift, set my wallet free. No more ramen noodles, I can't afford sweet tea. PNC and Deloitte, they gave us the green light. Now my paycheck's heavy and my future's bright.
All right, we hope you guys enjoyed that as much as we did. So the short version of our solution is this. Use the Employer Participation and Repayment Act. Put $5,250 tax-free towards your employee's student loan debt. And that is it. But why? Why should you do that? Well, one of the few companies that's already participating in this did a survey. And what they found is out of the people participating, 92% of them reported an increased level in overall wellness and happiness as it relates to their debt. And wasn't that the prompt to improve financial wellness? And I feel like that's what that says. So when I was growing up, my grandparents used to always say, girl, get a job at a good company and work there for 30 years and retire. But those days are gone. And in fact, 40% of the American workers will be looking for a new job in the next 12 months. And that statistic feels really believable because there's 100% of the people up here on stage will be looking for a new career in 12 months. But here's the real kicker. 60% of people say they're open to switching their job for this exact benefit. So we've got 40 plus 60. Now, I'm not a finance major, but those numbers look really good or really bad if you're talking about employee retention. I don't know. But you don't have to be super smart to see these and figure it out. I think it kind of speaks for itself. So now you're wondering, how do we implement this plan, right? Where does the money come from? It doesn't grow on trees. So let us explain to you how you can do this without being as broke as the people you're trying to help. Take it away, Rivan.
Thank you for that, Tabitha. Moving on. Now, the money to implement this program essentially comes from cost savings through employee retention. We conducted a sensitivity analysis here, wherein basically what we did is we had to make a few assumptions around three key factors. The first being average salary, employee retention rate, and the cost of replacing an employee. Deloitte conducted this study which showed us that approximately the cost of replacing an employee is 1.5 times their annual average salary, which works out to what, Abir?
109,000.
109? Oh, man. Okay, we also managed to pull data from PNC's employees who are tenured between 1 to 6 years. And what we found is that their average salary comes out to about
67,000.
Man, give me a break. You're not getting me the right numbers. Awesome. Let's move on to the next study that we found. Deloitte conducted the 2024 Human Capital Trend Study. And what that showed us is that essentially the cost of the 2024 Human Capital Trend Study showed us that the employee retention rate is 21.9% in the business and services industry. Now, that is an extremely high number. And since Abir isn't giving me the numbers right, I'm just going to move on to Tabitha again.
All right, so I love numbers, but I really love stickmen better. I think it explains things. So here we have 100 guys. This is your company, right? Now, out of 100 employees, one of the stats that we found was that 58% of people between the ages of 22 and 44 have student loan debt. So we're going to pretend that this company, 40 people have student loans. And remember this, and we'll say also that your company has decided to put just $100 a month towards the student loans. Obviously, that's a variable figure, but for this one, we'll say 100. It can go as high as $437 tax-free per month. That makes the annual cost in this scenario $48,000. Now, remember, people don't stay, so here we have our turnover tribe of 22 people. Now, if you managed to just save 4 of these people, given the Deloitte study, average salary, turnover rate, all of that stuff, this is going to be a total savings of $436, both direct and indirect cost. And remember, the cost to give them $100 a month was $48,000, and you're saving $46,000. Now, you might be thinking, like, how can you get this basis for how is this going to retain employees? One of the studies that I found super impressive, and also my daughter works for Chipotle, so I got excited about this, is that they expanded their tuition assistance program a few years ago to the full $5,250. And what they found was that their employee retention increased to 89% in just 5 months. So it's believable that you'll save a lot more than just those 4 stick guys, is what I'm really getting down to. But wait, there's more. Beyond these savings, what you also get is healthier employees, happier employees, and you're going to get back some of that lost productivity, which came out to 19 and a half days per year. So you'll get more productive and more engaged employees. Now, there's one statistic that we really didn't know how to quite dive into, but we feel that it is extremely important to cover as well when talking about this topic. And that is that 1 in 15 people consider taking their own life due to the unforgivable weight of their student loan debt. Now, these could seem just like cold PowerPoint, numbers, but in fact, it's our friends, it's our family members, it's our cohort members, it could even be our children that are finishing up college. So when we got this prompt, we had a ton of ideas, believe it or not, we had tons. But we decided to go with this one because we realized that it would have the highest level of impact for the most amount of people. Not only would it make people's lives better, but it potentially could also be a lifeline and save a life. So we started with Albert Einstein, and we are going to finish with a little Dr. Seuss. So Dr. Seuss said sometimes the questions are complicated, but the answers are simple. And that is how we see this program today. It is a simple solution to a very complicated problem. You don't always need something to be extremely innovative and cutting edge when, this solves something and it's just very simply right in front of you. You don't always have to reinvent the wheel when you've got one good one laying right there ready to roll. So we'd like to thank our judges today for listening to us, but more importantly, we want to give a huge shout out to our student loans. They gave us both the inspiration and the motivation to join this competition. Thank you.
Can someone ask if that's an original song? Oh, did you make up that song?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
AI generated, but yeah, we had to write it, and then it sang it for us.
Oh, my God, I love that.
That's great.
That's awesome.
So what's you referenced an act that lets you pay off loans tax-free. Can you say more about that?
So So that is existing right now. It's $5,250, the Employee Participation Repayment Act. It was implemented during COVID. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you. It is a temporary act, but it's been proposed to be permanent. And as Milton Friedman says, there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program, right? But we realize that there is 2 years left on it. And that gives you guys 2 good years to run with this, test it, prove it. And I'm pretty sure, without saying anything, that it probably will continue. But I think the Pennsylvania people know more about what's going to happen in the law than we do.
I think if I understand the economics of your argument, instead of just giving people more money, I'm going to give them more money tax-free, right? So that's the.
So the argument about that, this is a very good point, actually, and we prepared for that. So this is Charlie Munger. I really like this. He's some famous financier, but talking about dumb incentives give you dumb outcomes. When you give folks just a lump sum of money, what you find is that actually they often get themselves into more debt. And here's a study about that, which shows you that small windfalls, consumers go and spend it, and that's something I'd seen year after year at my own company. And, we'd come in Monday morning after the big profit sharing, and the whole parking lot's full of new cars. So we wouldn't recommend giving a lump of money if that's where you're going with that. It's about putting it directly towards the student loan to relieve the debt.
What's PNC's role here, too?
Great question. So we see 2 roles with PNC. First of all, PNC has some 60,000 employees, so I would love to see them just straight up implement the program to make their own employees happier. But on a second level, something that we considered is that PNC currently has a partnership with Candidly, where they've done this student, what was it called? Student loan debt solution data? Student debt solution. So, however, what that does with Candidly is what you can see here on the screen is how it works. It's really more of financial literacy. If I were PNC, I would create my own sort of implementation dashboard and manage it and not outsource the hundreds of thousands of dollars to Candidly, and let employers come in, use that to set up automatic payments for their employees in this program, and PNC could collect a revenue on that as an administration fee, but it's just a very basic, simple, automatic payment plan.
And to add on to what Tabitha just said, I think the current model kind of is centered around employees taking the first step about planning their finances. And we don't really see that as effective as when the employer takes the first step. So we're trying to move it from being an employee-centric model to an employer-centric model.
Do you have time for more questions? And how are you going to, sorry, this sounds overly political, I don't mean it way. What are you going to say to the employee that doesn't have any student debt?
So this is a really, I love that you point this out, actually, because one of the reasons I suggested this program was because I worked for a company for 15 years and I saw a great amount of inequality because we have employees that were getting tuition reimbursement, and then you had folks like me that were paying off their student loan. And there just was this inequality of benefits. So obviously, people come here today and they can't solve everybody's problem. Say, I've done something there. They can't solve, we couldn't solve every problem. So we took one where we felt like, okay, well, 42 million people have student loan debt right now. There are gonna be folks that don't fit into that bracket, you know, people, but it's surprising when you dig into the data and you actually see how many people are 44 to 55 that actually have student loan debt still. So to answer that question, I can't really tell you how they would answer that. I mean, how would they answer to the people like me who was paying off a student loan, and then Joe Schmo next to me is getting $5,250 in tuition reimbursement? And it felt very unfair that they're paying his college but not mine. Sorry. I love your questions. Please, can I have some more? There's still 4 more minutes.
So you're proposing that 5250 would be available in contributions, so employer contributions toward existing debt, and available through tuition reimbursement potentially, or it would be exclusively the employer contributions?
So if I understand your question correctly, the government has it set so that there's a maximum of 5250. So just to make sure I'm clear, you can't do both for an individual anyways. But there is some leeway in the program where you can actually apply it as well to your family members, but I'm not going to jump into that. So I would say pay it directly towards the student loan debt just because it does sort of meet the outcomes of financial wellness on paying down debt. There's a great amount of studies that show when you pay down debt, there's benefits to that opposed to giving them a lump sum even like as a reimbursement. But everybody's different. Some companies currently with their tuition reimbursement, you have to give them the bill and show that you've paid the classes and they reimburse you. So each company would implement this how it worked best with their existing structure on probably tuition reimbursement. So if they've got a whole system of HR folks that help do the tuition reimbursement and they have a strategy there, that's how they want to follow it, then that's how they do it. Some of the, and about 8% of companies do this right now, but it's not that much. And what we find is most companies are only doing about $100. And that's why I say, go the full way. Be Chipotle, in a world of Taco Bell. Is all go all the way. Go all in. You're gonna get the top talent. I know that.
And you always have that flexibility, like Tabitha pointed out. The act itself that we kind of pointed out to earlier supports both bits, minimum contribution as well as a lump sum contribution. So you can work through both the models and kind of figure out which one works best. But we would go the student loan way, essentially.